Good morning. Yesterday was a difficult day for us, and I knew it would be because the nervous system is the most complicated out of the body systems. And one of the big reasons for that is it controls everything that we do. So, yesterday, the first thing I had you do was go on the Kids Health website and just read about the function of the nervous system. So, in case you skipped over it, I'm just going to read it out to you. So, if you see my eyes go up, that's going to be why. So, the nervous system controls everything you do, including breathing, walking, thinking, feeling. So, it's controlling things that we have control over, like raising our hand, pumping our arms, taking steps and walking, and things we don't have control over, like breathing, our heart beating, and digestion. The system is made up of three main organs. Our brain, which we know, or we should know by now, is protected by our skull. It's also made up of our spinal cord, and our spinal cord is protected by our spine, which are those 33 separate vertebrae going from the base of our neck basically to the top of our bum. And then it's also made up of a bunch of nerves, and that's where it gets confusing. And these nerves are going to send messages to different parts of our body. So the brain is what's called the control center. Think of the brain as the command, okay? Whenever we talk about the brain of anything, the brain of a computer or the brain of an animal or the brain of a person, it's the control center, it's the command. The spinal cord is like the highway that the messages travel up and down from. So from our brain to our different parts of our body, to our different parts of our body, to the brain. And then the nerves carry messages to and from the body so the brain can interpret them and then take action. So in other words, if I wanted to grab this pen, grabbing the pen would be the action. Well, the nerves are how those messages gets carried, so eventually my hand goes to grab the pen. So what I want to do is also talk about something I didn't really mention. The other reason it is so important is a lot of the body systems interact with one another, but the nervous system interacts with all of them. So when we talk about it having control over things that we do, that means it's going to interact with the muscular system and skeletal system, which we already learned about, digestive, respiratory system, the circulatory system, and even our endocrine system, which you won't learn about this year. But the nervous system interacts with every other body system. So that's why it's pretty complicated. So I thought I would start or continue by going over the answers from yesterday's video and questions and maybe elaborating on it a little bit. Because again, I know it's confusing. I was doing a lot of correcting yesterday and a lot of answering questions, which I encourage. So if you don't understand something, please ask until you do. Some people are calling me on the phone asking me to explain. I'm 100% okay with that. So keep doing that. So the first question asked about the sensory organs. And a lot of you are giving me the 5 senses, okay, that I can see and that I can hear and that I can taste and that I can smell and that I can touch. Those are your senses. Your sensory organs are what help you experience those senses. So your sensory organs are your eyes, your nose. I have a bigger nose, but that doesn't mean I have a bigger sensory organ. Yes, actually it does. My mouth. My skin, some of you were saying hands, but the sense of touch can be anywhere. So your hands. And what did I miss? Oh, and my ears. Okay. So the sensory organs are the body parts, in control of those senses. And it says, what do sensory organs do? Well, your sensory organ, whichever one we're talking about, whether it's eyes, nose, mouth, ears, or skin, is going to receive information and send that information to the brain. So I'm going to see something, like right now I'm looking up at my computer. It's going in through my sensory organ and it's going to my brain, that information. I'm touching this pen. So my sense of touch, my hand in this case, is the sensory organ and it sends that information to my brain. You're listening to me right now, so the information's going in through your sensory organ, which is your ear, and being sent to your brain. If I was to take a sip, and there's nothing in here, but if I was to take a sip of water or coffee, the information would be going in through my sensory organ, my mouth, and being sent to my brain. If all of a sudden there was a pleasant odor or an unpleasant odor, right? That I'm smelling it, the information goes in through my sensory organ and gets sent to my brain. So that's kind of the first step in the path of a message being sent. Goes in through one of the sensory organs or more than one of the sensory organs and gets sent to your brain. So then the second question was asking, well, once the brain gets that information, what does it do? Now remember, the brain is the control or the command center, so it's going to interpret that information and it's going to process that information. So it goes from the sensory organ to your brain, where your brain's processing what's happening before it figures out what it's going to do with that information. The next question said, well, describe the path a message moves. And this one was confusing, and you'll be doing an activity tomorrow. We were going to do it today, but I realized we needed some review. So you'll be doing an activity tomorrow where you'll actually experience how the message is sent from beginning to end. So again, the first thing is the information enters our sensory organs, whether that's our eyes, our nose, our mouth, our ears, or our hands, or another part of our skin that we're sensing touch with. Once it goes into the sensory organs, it moves through the sensory nerves to the brain. So that's how it goes from sensory organs to the brain, through sensory nerves, okay? And once it gets to the brain interprets and processes that information. Well, what does the brain then do with that information? Well, it sends the information out away from our brain to different body parts for a response to happen. And the way it gets from the brain to those different body parts are through the motor nerves, because the motor nerves are going to carry information away from the brain to different parts of the body. So let's give a real life example. So let's say I want to pick up this pen. I'm going to put the pen down. You can't really see it anymore, but you know what I'm focusing on. So if I want to pick up the pen, the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking at the pen. Information's going through my sensory organs, which are my eyes. By way of the sensory nerves, it gets to the brain. Now my brain sends a message through the motor nerves to my hand, to the muscles in my hand. So see how it's working with the skeletal and muscular system? And it sends that message for me to grab it, and my muscles contract and relax and pick up the pen. Now, the highway that the message travels from the sensory nerves to the brain to the motor nerves to the different body part, is going to be the spinal cord, okay? So the nerves are kind of, surrounding the spinal cord. You can think of it that way, and I'm going to show you a video about it today to make more sense. Let's say if I wanted to jump out of my chair, okay? So what's going to happen is the information is going to go in through my sensory organs. It's going to travel through my brain, through my sensory nerves. Once that information's in my brain, it's going to travel from my brain through the motor nerves to my body, causing my muscles to expand and contract and relax and get my body off of the chair. If there's a disruption in those nerve pathways, so for example, if someone has a spinal cord injury and is partially paralyzed, this is why they can't move maybe the lower parts of their body. Because as the message goes from the brain saying, okay, I want to get up and I want to get out of this chair, as the message goes from the brain to the motor nerves and it gets interrupted because those nerves are destroyed, now my muscles can't react because they can't get the message, so I can't move the lower part of my body. And that's, part of the reason you can't move in a spinal cord injury, and it depends where the nerve damage is. If it's up higher, you have less mobility. If it's down lower, maybe I can move my arms and my head and my mouth and talk and breathe on my own, but I just can't walk or have lower mobility. The next question says, what type of muscle is involuntary? And the reason they're revisiting in this is because there's two types of motor nerves. So when the message goes from your brain to your motor nerves, it's getting carried away from your brain to different parts of your body. If it's getting carried to a voluntary muscle, it's called a somatic nerve. And the voluntary muscles I have control over, like lifting my hand, getting out of my chair, shaking my head, smiling, grabbing the pen. Those are going to be motor nerves that are called somatic because I have control over them. Sometimes the message goes from your brain through the motor nerves and goes to a part of the body where you don't have control, to your digestive system, to your heart, to your lungs for breathing. And those are called autonomic because you don't have control. But your heart's beating and your blood's circulating and your food is digesting. Says, how has the nervous system been divided? We did pretty well on this. So there are two divisions of the nervous system. We have the central nervous system, which is made up of the organs of the brain and the spinal cord. And then your peripheral nervous system are the nerves. And the reason it's called peripheral is peripheral, like your peripheral vision means on the outside. So if you think of your spine as that highway that the messages are going up and down, the nerves are kind of coming off of there and spreading out to the outsides and all parts of your body. Let's see, what else? What are the two types of nerves? I've already kind of mentioned them a little bit, sensory and motor. The sensory nerves take the information from your sensory organs and bring it to your brain. The motor nerves take the information that your brain has received and processed and move it to different parts of your body. Some parts of the body it goes to are going to be your autonomic nervous system, which means you have no control over it. So going to like your heart, to your lungs, your digestive system. And some parts of the body that those motor nerves take the message and take it to are going to be part of your somatic nerves. And those are going to be the ones you have control over. So again, functions of the nervous system, it really controls everything that we do and it interacts with all of the body systems. The main organs involved are your spinal cord, which is protected by your spine, your brain, which is protected by your skull, and your nerves. The message goes from the sensory organs, so into your eyes, ears, nose, mouth, or skin, through your sensory nerves to your brain. Once that message gets to your brain interprets it, it processes it, and it takes that message away from your brain through the motor nerves to different parts of your body. Some parts of your body you have control over, and that's part of your somatic nerves that are going to require a response or result in a response of like squeezing or lifting or smiling, controlling those muscles. And some of your autonomic nerves, which you have no control over, like breathing and digestion and the beating of your heart. So what you're going to do following this video, and listen to it as many times as you need to, is I'm going to include a couple more videos today that's going to go over the nervous system. And hopefully between yesterday's assignment with my corrections and today me kind of breaking it down and explaining it to you, that you'll have a stronger understanding. And then tomorrow you're going to do a really cool activity. It's actually going to be broken down into two parts. So part of it will be tomorrow, and part of it will be on Thursday, just so we can really strengthen the understanding of the nervous system. I think you're going to enjoy it, and the only materials you're going to need are a ruler and a partner. So grab mom, dad, brother, sister, whoever takes care of you, whoever you live with in the house to help you out with this. Have a great day. Please make sure you review this because it's super important, and I'll talk to you soon.